Hello everyone, welcome to week 3. Hope everything's going well for you. Thank you guys so much for participating in the discussions last week. They were great, great discussions happening there. The time management one, of course, is very valuable and not just in business, but in life, right? So you take care of the big things first and the little things just kind of fill in after that. And I know, obviously I've seen things like that many times throughout my career, but I always think it's an important lesson because we get so caught up in the little things and sometimes we lose sight of the big things just because those little grains of sand fill up our jar so fast. So hopefully you got something out of that. I appreciate the discussion there. And then that discussion on ethics and social responsibility, that's a huge one and something that hopefully sinks in and resonates with you that, because you can take it through your whole career. It's always important. And so many things seem black and white, right? It's the example that was posted about Nestle, right? Child slavery, pretty much wrong, right? Like that's pretty black and white. Enslaving children, that pretty much falls on the wrong side. But there's a lot of issues in the business world or the corporate world that are gray. You need some guidance sometimes. For example, my current job is in our company's procurement tower. So I used to be in sourcing, which is negotiating and signing contracts, right? I'm not in that role anymore. I'm in vendor management now. But when you work for a company who hires vendors, right? We contract with many vendors across the world. Those vendors like to do things for you to entice you to do business with them. So once a year, a few people from my unit travel to India and the Philippines and Puerto Rico and Ireland and places around the world where we have vendors doing business for us, just to check on their operation, right? Make sure everything's legit, their people are being treated well, their facilities are, acceptable, those kind of things. And really, we give some pep talks to the people that work for us. But I have on many occasions had vendors reach out to me and say they want to pay for those trips. They want to entice us to come. That seems great, right? I mean, those are like $20,000 trips, so we're saving some money, right? But we can't. We don't accept those kind of gifts. And to me, I understand it now, but when I first was introduced to it, it seemed like a gray area. Like, why wouldn't you want to save money and have vendors pay for this? But it's something you don't really want to make a practice of because then it looks like you are accepting bribes for business, and of course that's not good. But vendors reach out for everything. They send us sporting tickets. They send trips. They send anything, and we can't accept those. So that's something that as you go through your career, you just kind of have to. These situations are gonna come up, right? And that's the need for compliance departments and social responsibility officers, and those kind of things are very important and get more and more so as our business world gets more and more complex. So good things to keep in mind. The discussion last week was great. Excited to see what we're going to discuss going further on in the class. So hopefully you read and appreciated the chapter on social responsibility and ethics. So now let's talk about, as we're leading into our discussion on global business, international trade, chapter 3 for this week. It's all good stuff. I probably, you are familiar with this kind of stuff already. A lot of our even daily life is based on international trade, right? I mean, how many things do you buy that are 100% made in America? Very few. And even those that say they are probably are not. Most American cars are not assembled in America. So, they say, American or whatever, but they're not. The parts might be imported from other places. The cars might be built in other places. I drive a Dodge, American car, right? No. Parts are from Mexico. It's assembled in Canada. So, even things that you think are American probably are not 100%. Something came from somewhere else. So a big part of our life is international trade as consumers. Even if you don't want it to be, even if you're trying to buy mostly American stuff, it's very difficult. There's very few things that are that way. And that's not good or bad. It's just, the fact of how the world is now. So section 1 talks about the economic basis. So we're going to slip into economics mode for a minute. Any of you that have taken an economics class probably recognize these things. So the beauty of international trade is that countries can specialize in the things that they're good at, and then trade those things. So that's comparative advantage for those of you with economic background, right? So the book says each country produces the goods and services it can produce most efficiently, and that nation is said to have a comparative advantage. And then you can trade so that everybody gets the best, right? And that's been, people have done that forever, even in, forever. Somebody was a cobbler and somebody was a baker and somebody, grew the food or whatever, and then you traded because not everybody can do everything. There's just not enough time to do everything, so you do what you're best at, what you have a comparative advantage at, and then you trade that. That's happened for, generations, centuries. Nation's balance of trade is the difference between the value of its exports, the value of its imports, and you want to keep that positive, right? You want to sell more than you buy. That's just a pretty common, solid business practice. Sell more than you buy. Make more than you spend. Section 2 talks about entering the international markets. There's a bunch of ways to do that, from least intrusive being licensing. So you just buy the name of something that's already made foreignly. Foreignly? Is that a word? I don't know. Foreign made. And then up to you develop a multinational corporation where you're actually producing things internationally. Section 3 talks about tariffs or limitations. Those have been going on for years. I'm sure you've heard of many of them in the past. We currently have one, a trade sanction with Russia. So the book talks about the positives, right? It's meant to protect citizens or licenses or security. And that's true, but it doesn't really talk about the flip side of that, right? The sanctions, the punishment side, the limitations to show a country we don't agree with what they're doing, and that's a big part of tariffs. It's happening now with Russia. It used to be with Cuba. We've had a lot of sanctions over the years that are punitive, not to protect American citizens or American businesses. It's to show other countries we don't appreciate what they're doing. Currently, Russia. International business economic outlook. Of course, it's increasing. It's here to stay. It's only going to get more and more. The world's going to become more saturated with these kind of things. Most countries already participate. Those that don't, their economies are slowly shutting down, and they're going to have to. At some point, if you want to keep your people alive, eventually you're going to have to trade. Part I really want to touch on is the International Trade Agreement section 3.5. They talk about GATT and the World Trade Organization and the European Union, all good things, things that have been put in place to aid and put some rules around global business so that no one can take advantage, right? There's some kind of mediation in there. World Trade Organization, obviously for the world, the EU, obviously for European, and then they talk about other things. The thing I did want to hit on, though, is NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement. So obviously that affects us, right? America is part of the North American Free Trade Agreement. So it's Mexico, United States, and Canada. The 3 countries in North America. That makes sense, right? That's what it's called. And this book was written before NAFTA was updated. So NAFTA has had an update. In 2017, the sanctions went in, or not sanctions, but the changes went in July of 2020. And it has changed some of the rules. So I did put a little blurb in the description for this week about the updates, and there's an article there if you want to read it. it's been positive. It's had positive effects for all three countries. So if you have a minute, go ahead and read that. It kind of tells the updates that have happened to NAFTA since this book was written. 6 and 7 are really about the financial parts of international banking, international trade, and how you can use different firms and banks and whatnot to help get your company started in international trade. So all good stuff. Definitely where the world is headed, and definitely something that you want to be proficient at if you're working for a company that is global, or if you own or run a business that someday wants to be global or is global. These are things that you should know, and there's a lot of rules and regulations and best practices and those kind of things. So definitely study up on those. As always, reach out to me if you have any questions, any issues. I know there's a couple of you still working through technical issues, so hopefully we'll get those taken care of. But yeah, just reach out. And if you can't get an assignment to post in the assignment link, you can always send it to me through the course mail. So if it won't work one way, just try a different way. We'll get it figured out. I think we're doing pretty well. So happy week 3. Reach out if you need anything, and we'll talk again next week. Thanks.